This is the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast, episode 670, 6 tips to close out the school year in Google Classroom. Welcome to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast, hosted by author, educator, speaker, and mom, the Cool Cat teacher, Vicki Davis. Vicki's guest today is Kasey Bell, a former middle school teacher turned award-winning digital learning coach, international speaker, author, blogger, and podcaster with a Texas-sized passion for technology and learning. She is the developer and presenter of Shake Up Learning and co-host of the Google Teacher Podcast. She leads a variety of digital learning workshops and helps thousands of educators transform their classroom as a skilled facilitator, Google Certified Innovator, and Google Certified Trainer. Let's get started. Enjoy.
Today, I want to recommend my friend Kasey Bell's Google Classroom Masterclass. Become a better distance education teacher and get half off this amazing class. I'll tell you how at the end of the show. So today we're talking with my friend Kasey Bell. So many people are using Google Classroom now, and we're working to finish up the year. Now, Kasey is the author of recommended Google Classroom Masterclass that I am recommending on the podcast this week. But Kasey, today we're going to talk about 5 things that we need to do to finish up the year well in Google Classroom. We just don't log off and we're done, do we?
No, that's not really the best way to do it. Although I know a lot of teachers just want to wipe their hands and be done.
So where do we start?
The first thing that I would do before you get too click happy and start deleting anything is to take some time to reflect. And I know for some teachers that may be the thing you really just don't even want to think about right now. You just want to be done with this crazy year. But I want you to think about what worked, what didn't. Think about what worked when you were still in the classroom and during this whole crazy remote learning thing that we've been going through, because you don't want to repeat the same mistakes. Reflection is key for your learning and growth as well as for our students. So I want you to take the time, whether you jot it down on paper, you open a Google Doc, whatever you like to do, review what you did and try to remember, oh yeah, I totally forgot that this did not work out so well. I don't want to do this the same way again, and make all of those ideas and changes down in your notes so that you don't have any repeats when you begin again next year.
You know, this is important because I was looking at the current guidelines from the White House, and then if you have somebody on your campus, they want you to send everybody home for 2 to 5 days. So we could face situations where we have to go remote quickly. So we don't want to just say, I'm done, I'll never do this again. We need to realize that we may inherit whatever we learn from now, right?
Exactly. The new normal is probably going to be some kind of hybrid of what we've been doing completely remotely and distance learning, as well as hopefully seeing the pretty smiling faces of our students again.
And we know that blended learning is, the research shows that blended is better than just face-to-face or just remote. So if we want the best of both worlds, it's time to do that. Now is the time to tell your principal or your curriculum director what you loved and what tools you want, because they're not going to be free in the fall, are they, Kasey?
Exactly.
Okay, what's our second?
So our second tip is to check your to-do list in Google Classroom. So this can get muddied up, especially if you've kind of been in that completion type of setting for a little while. I know a lot of schools have kind of shifted gears and you're really just giving feedback and maybe not grading everything. So we want to clean that up before we do anything else. So go to your main menu in Google Classroom, the 3 lines, and click on your to-do list and review what's there. You can filter it by each class if you want to look at it by each class and mark them as reviewed, send some feedback if you need to, get all of that cleaned up in that to-do list tab before you do anything else.
And does that mean we go ahead and hand it back?
Yes. If you're returning work, if there's work that hasn't been reviewed, assessed, that you need to give feedback on, and you want to return it back to students so that they can see that and hopefully read that feedback.
Okay. What's our third thing?
The third one is probably the one that's driving everybody crazy right now, but this is cleaning up your folders. So the beautiful thing about Google Classroom is the way it auto-magically creates folders for you inside Google Drive. And so with so many new users, I feel like a lot of people may not understand how that works. But the first time you sign up for Google Classroom, it creates a top-level folder named Classroom. in your drive. And inside that folder is a folder for each of your classes, titled whatever you named your classes. And inside each of your class folders are folders for each assignment. So there's a hierarchy to it, and it's all done for you. But I would encourage you, first, do not go delete everything. Just hang on just a second. Again, this is why that reflection part was so key. You want to make sure that you are ready to organize or move things around. I personally am a fan of keeping things year to year. I might be a little bit of a teacher hoarder, but sometimes you want to go back and see those student examples. Sometimes you want to go back and see other things. But I would recommend creating a folder inside Classroom named by the school year. So, the 2019-2020 school year, and move all of those folders in there so it's clean, it's out of the way, but they're still there if you need them. And that way you can clean it up, get it organized, color code to your heart's content. By the way, does everybody know you can color code your folders in Google Drive? Just right click on it and you can choose a color and just move that work around, but don't move it outside of the Classroom folder. I would just keep it there, especially if you have not finished that to-do list or any of those other things. You want to make sure that's done before you start cleaning up any folders.
Okay. Now, what's next?
The next thing is the calendars. So love me some Google Calendar, Vicki, but the other thing that Google Classroom automatically does is create a Google Calendar for each of your classes, which is great until you've been teaching for 6 years and you now have like 20 million calendars that you don't use anymore. So you may want to go through and clear out and delete even those calendars that you're not going to use again. And you can do that by going to Google Calendar. Remember, there is a special link inside Classroom, but you can also go separately to calendar.google.com. And you're going to go to the setting icon that's near the top right, click on settings, and you're going to scroll down until you see a list of your calendars on the left. Click on the calendar that you wish to delete, and then you'll scroll all the way down to the bottom to permanently delete. Now, here's the thing, though. Before you decide to delete, you can tell I'm so afraid of the delete button. Before you click delete, think about if there's anything that you want to review in terms of, how did I spread that assignment out? When was that lesson due? Because you can actually go back and save some of your calendars. You could print them to a PDF and save them to look at them again, just to kind of see the timeline of things. So one view that I like in Google Calendar is that you can see the agenda view. There's a little drop down. Mine defaults to month. And then when you click on month, you can choose agenda. And there you can see a list of items instead of the calendar view, and it'll let you fit more on the page. And you could print that or save it as a PDF and put it in your Google Drive so that you could go look at it next year when you're trying to remember the flow of everything.
I so print those out, and I actually typically put them with my lesson planning book because it just puts everything together. You know how those dates move around?
They do.
I like to plan with a big monthly calendar before my year starts to say, hey, what worked and what didn't. And I think it's a reality check for how long did it really take,
Yes. That's why that reflection piece is so key, because if you don't remember that this assignment actually took you 3 weeks longer than you thought it was going to, then you're going to run into that problem again.
Okay, what's next? And I love this one.
Yes. Number 5 is to set up a template, a class template for next year. And I want you to think of this on both sides of the coin, because I feel like the use of Google Classroom may look different for a lot of teachers in terms of how they used it in the blended environment inside their classroom versus how they may have been using it remotely. So your setup may be different. So you may want to create different templates based on that, but I'm not necessarily recommending that because that could confuse things. I just want you to keep that in mind if that's something you do and you're an advanced user. But what you can do is you can create a class, and you can create all the topics you want. You can add assignments. You can do all of those things to set it up as kind of your ideal class. And then from the Classroom homepage, you can click on the 3 dots next to that classroom name and make a copy. So here's what I would do. I wouldn't probably create a template from scratch because you just went through a school year and you've got this great example. What I would do is I would probably make a copy of the class that you just finished, go tweak it a little bit, and then create your template from that. So we're actually going to make a copy of a copy, but just to think about that in terms of creating that template and name it template. Don't use it as your class so that then every time you create a new class, you're going to create it from that template. And it will add all of your assignments, but it will save them as a draft. So it's not going to give them due dates, so you don't have to worry about that. But it's going to give you that same organization so you don't spend the time setting that up over and over again.
Love that. Now, I have one or two questions. Some people say to go and remove all your students. What's your opinion there?
I can see both sides of it. I think the next tip is going to take care of that problem. I haven't had a need to remove students, at least from the teachers that I've been working with. I don't know. I'm always wanting to go back. I feel like there's always questions that come up, maybe from parents, maybe from administrators, that I may need to go back and look at. So I feel like still having those connections and knowing who was on that roster is still useful, although you probably have that in lots of places. But I would leave that up to the teacher, or even the school may direct you on what they prefer.
So you could even do it midsummer or something. Because, some people are concerned of, well, Bobby had my class and then his sister Susie has my class next year, and I don't want him to go in and just tell them everything coming up.
Right. Well, that's why we're going to do tip number 5, which is archive. And so when you archive your classroom, it's going to go into your archived classes. And to do this, you'll go to that homepage. I call them the cards, the little cards you see for each of your classes. There's 3 dots, and you can click on archive. You're going to get a little warning that says, hey, are you sure? And this is what it says. You and your students won't be able to make changes. You can view this class in archive classes in the menu. All class files will remain in Google Drive. So then you can click archive. So at that point, yes, a student would still be able to view the archive. They would still have returned assignments, meaning, yes, they could technically share that with their sibling or with their friends. But I kind of feel like if they're going to do that, they can do that anyway.
Yeah, because the stuff will be in their drive.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily know that just removing students actually eliminates that issue.
And you know what? I think we have 6.
Did I count wrong? I do. I have 2 number 5s. Oh, I cheated.
Well, we got 5 plus a bonus. So, Kasey, as we finish up, I know you have your Google Classroom masterclass and the teachers at my school, and I'm going through that, as well as your Google Classroom Level 1 certification. Do you think that's a good option to get ready for the fall?
I really do. And I was conflicted at first. I didn't want anyone to think I was trying to sell some magic bullet here, and I don't believe in magic bullets, but the more demand that I get from teachers for the skills that they need, the more I see how much this will align to meet those needs. And in fact, I just recorded my own podcast that's about how Google certifications can support remote learning skills. So I've been a proponent of Google certification for so many years, mostly because of my own journey. Like, I can tell you, Vicki, you and I wouldn't know each other. We wouldn't even be talking if I hadn't pushed myself to do that and gain the confidence to put myself out there, to give presentations, to go to conferences, to do all of these things, to start the Shake Up Learning blog. None of that would have existed. And I think a lot of people underestimate not only just what you can learn, because Lord knows there's always something new to learn about Google, but also just the fears that teachers have, how they're afraid they're going to do something wrong. But when they get all of these skills under their belt, they gain so much more confidence to try new things, to take on the challenge of remote learning. And then they're going to be that much better at using all of these tools in a blended learning environment as well.
And I also think, getting your whole school on the same page, how many teachers have never learned online? And when you take an online course, you're learning remotely yourself, right? So I think you better understand what works. So here's our tips, which it looks like it's 6. I was sitting here writing, I'm like, 5. So this is how we can finish up the school year. Let's finish well. Let's work together. And I definitely love your number 1, which is reflect, because we do need to sit down and reflect before we just start getting busy. We just want to get that checklist done. I used to say get out of the building, but it's not getting, we are out of the building. Just, I guess, log out for a little while. But thank you, Kasey. And again, stay tuned at the end of the show to hear more about some of the things that I recommend from Kasey. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Vicki.
My friend Kasey Bell writes this Shake Up Learning blog. Kasey is who I turn to when I need to train my teachers on Google Classroom and the Level 1 Google Classroom Teacher Certification Training. Right now, Kasey is offering her Google Classroom Masterclass at half off. That's a great deal, especially now. If you're in the middle of distance learning or upping your Google Classroom ability, go to googleclassroomcourse.com and use the coupon code HOMELEARNING to get 50% off and take advantage of that great price. So sign up now for Kasey's Google Classroom Masterclass. If you need training for your entire school like I did, check out a G Suite training for schools.com. Tell her Vicki Davis, the Cool Cat Teacher, sent you. Kasey rocks, and I think she'll help you become a better distance learning teacher now. Thanks for sponsoring the show, Kasey.